comes to interest rates and their impact on Canadians, I think it's important for Canadians to know that their government understands what they're going through. And yesterday, I spent the day doing my job as a constituency MP. I spent the day in my constituency office. I talked to students. I talked to the leaders of my riding's BIAs. And what I heard from them in very direct personal stories was the impact that high interest rates are having on Canadians. It's important in our parliamentary democracy for people, Canadians, to know that they can have those kinds of conversations with their MPs, that they can have those kinds of conversations with their finance minister. And it's important for them to know that their finance minister hears them. And I absolutely do. And that's why I also said in my remarks just now that I believe, our single greatest economic priority, certainly for me as finance minister, needs to be to use all the tools at my disposal to work hard with leaders at other levels of government, to do everything we can to create the economic conditions that will allow prices to stabilize and therefore will make it possible for interest rates to come down. I think that's where we are in the Canadian economy. We understand the pressures Canadians are facing and we're there with them.
Well, I don't know if I buy it. She always has this long pause. And if you couldn't see her ears, it would be like, are you listening to something? She's like a download before she goes on with her, speech. And, on the one hand, they'll say that they recognize what we're going through. They're in the daycare to show how much they care about the everyday person who, can't have a nanny and has to have their child drop off there. And then on the other hand, they're saying like, yeah, and we're also going to, tax you up the what when it comes to climate change. Are you buying anything of what she said there, Sid?
No, all I can think of right now is her recommending during the economic crisis they created that you should get rid of your Disney Plus subscription. Yeah. That was her, grand advice that would save your family from starvation. And one thing I do remember still is a photo. I think Ezra, our boss here at Rebel News, of course, he tweeted about her shoes. There's a photo of her shoes, and they look like a regular pair of kids' shoes, but they're actually like $1,000. Oh, they're very expensive, high end. And this is the kind of, attitude that they embrace. They want to look like they fit in with, the lower clad, let's say, while they're actually spending exorbitant amounts on their own condition.
Yeah, I remember those shoes, and they weren't even nice at all. But, it's better than seeing their shoes right there. I shouldn't laugh, but it's better than seeing without her shoes, which I've seen before. She's not always so put together. But yeah, you're right. It's a lot of virtue signaling that they are us. They are united with us. But it also, she's so contradictory sometimes. I'm glad that you brought up the whole cancel your Disney account, which that's probably why the babies are screaming at her in the background when she's talking. But it also, even with getting that speeding ticket after she told us that she only bikes around, she's, risking people's lives and speeding and things like that. So we're not buying it. Neither, I guess, is leader of the opposition, Pierre Poilievre. He's going after the Liberals. We have a video coming up here where he's explaining how the Justin Trudeau is trying to erase our culture by removing Canadian symbols. So let's take a look at this.
See the shadow of Frontenac still there? It was deleted from the passport, along with the famous Vandus and countless other symbols of Canadiana, of which we are all so proud. Justin Trudeau, of course, would like us to erase our past and cancel our future and replace it with the dystopia that now exists in this country after 8 years of his government, where the cost of living is rising faster than at any time in modern memory. Work doesn't pay. Interest rates are rising faster than ever in monetary history. Housing costs have doubled. Crime, chaos, drugs and disorder are common in our streets. And what does he want to do about it? He wants to quadruple the carbon tax to 61 cents a liter. He does this while he jets around the world, while his environment minister goes to Beijing. In China, the country that emits by far the highest greenhouse gases of any country on earth. He won't be wagging his finger at the leaders in that country. He's too busy wagging his fingers at single mothers back in Canada who have to buy groceries for their kids, or working class carpenters who need a pickup truck to do their jobs. And when they do their jobs, work doesn't pay. They earn an extra $1. With clawbacks and taxes, they can lose 80 cents of that dollar. We punish hard work in this country after 8 years of Trudeau. You don't bring it home. In fact, increasingly, Canadians do not have a home at all. Housing costs have doubled. Rent has doubled. Mortgage payments have doubled. The cost of a down payment needed to buy a home has doubled. It has been double trouble after 8 years of Justin Trudeau. You know, the good news is, life was not like this in Canada before Justin Trudeau, and it won't be like this after.
Everybody cheering and clapping, but it is true. There have been so many changes that we've gone through for Canada. And I think we're going through so many things. You know, he listed a lot of the things that the everyday people are suffering. The whole idea of buying out a home out here. If you're a young person where I live in the Vancouver area, like you can't even get a shack in Vancouver for anything affordable, even if you and somebody else have, you know, a good wage in the home. But I think that that clip is just part of many that we're probably going to see from the Conservative convention that's taking place. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's taking place in Quebec. So we have some reports coming from the lovely Alexa on that as well. But, you know, I don't know, with the next leader that gets in, if we do have a next leader, they kind of have a lot of cleaning up to do. I don't know, like, I wouldn't envy that position. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, and I mentioned that previously. As soon as Pierre Poilievre enters into office, let's say, assuming he wins the prime minister position, all he has to do is clean up Justin Trudeau's act over the last few years. It's actually very simple. He doesn't have to come up with anything new. He just has to undo a lot of the things that have been implemented. And you mentioned a shack, you know, and the cost of housing. And it, you know, in contrast to this, we have another leader of the NDP, Jagmeet Singh, and he calls this all an act. And it's interesting to see them squabble like this. And it's funny coming from Jagmeet, considering his rhetoric towards the Freedom Convoy movement, while at the same time his brother was donating to that same movement. So I don't know, maybe we can pull up that clip and, you know, decide who's who in the jungle here.
See, for Pierre, it's all an act. He pretends to care, but he doesn't know how regular people live. He thinks if you live in a normal home, instead of a government-funded mansion like him, it's a shack. Pierre Poilievre has had government-funded dental care for almost all his adult life, but he wants to take it away from kids and their families who are just now able to get their teeth fixed.
Always
That's
the
not the kind of respect that working people deserve. Pierre Poilievre doesn't want to help. He just wants power. And he will use that power the same way conservatives have always used their power, to make the richer and to take away every bit of dignity from hardworking Canadians.
He's hiding his Rolex under his sleeve there. I mean, yeah, it is interesting to see them take shots at each other. And I'm not going to say that, you know, politicians don't put on an act, but I will say when it comes to Pierre Poilievre, if he is doing an act, he's been pretty consistent with that act over time. We've seen Trudeau go back and say the opposite of what he says today versus what he just said, you know, a couple of years ago during the lockdown. But Pierre has, you know, been a politician for years. We saw even with when he was a finance minister, the sort of common sense approach that he took every time, anytime he was challenged. And I see that he's continuing that through the campaign. So at the very least, he's consistent over the years. And again, Jagmeet Singh with the Rolex, I remember he dressed down in a video, and I think he was, you know, throwing shade at Poilievre in that video too, and Trudeau. And he was wearing like a casual polo, and he still had the Rolex, and everybody called him out for that. But he also wears the $2,000 suits. He's not living in a shack out here in Burnaby, BC, or wherever he lives near me. But yeah.
Yeah, no, he's certainly living pretty lavishly, I imagine. But let's not forget, he talks about all the power Pierre wants. Well, what did Jagmeet do with his power as the leader of the federal NDP? He gave it to Justin Trudeau. He basically abandoned the voters of his own party and gave the seats of power that he created, in some senses, to Justin Trudeau, and they've been ruling with an iron fist because of that for a period of time. Now, obviously, there's tensions there and divisions that have been created amongst Jagmeet and the Liberals. Of course, they're not on the same side in some senses. But what do we see all this power talk and fighting about? It's just them trying to make other people look bad. How long has Jagmeet been talking about dental care, and what has he actually done at the end of the day? Has he a large portfolio of work and succeeding at the objectives he's laying on the table, or does he just like to talk about them?
Hey folks, that was a clip from the daily live stream I co-hosted Monday to Thursday from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Alberta team takes over on Friday. Please tune in. And by the way, we want to hear your 2 cents worth. If you're able to make a minimal $5 donation, we will read your chat on the air live. Thank you.
Justin Trudeau's new censorship law, Bill C-18, it's a shakedown and a desperate attempt to keep the mainstream media afloat. Many have already lost their ability to access our Facebook and Instagram pages. The blackout will soon affect every user in Canada. We've partnered with Private Internet Access, a VPN provider dedicated to safeguarding digital privacy. For just $2 a month, you can maintain your access to our content across all your devices at piavpn.com/rebelnews.